We have our playoff teams, which means we also have our non-playoff teams. These are the exit interviews of the sides that are heading home earlier than they probably would have wanted to. We'll add some team maps here as well to show if your team is better or worse than normal. A value of 1 means they're par, and the higher it is, the better they are for that category. We weight the true values of batting and bowling according to the phase. For instance, taking a wicket in the 20th over is easier than taking it in the first. Striking 150 at the death is below par, while doing the same in the middle overs means you're doing pretty well even in a high-scoring season. And so now we're going to talk about the 4 teams that have been eliminated from the playoff race. The team maps are updated as of the 15th of May, but we'll be looking at the entire season for these sides. If you need a VPN, go Nord. Use nordvpn.com/Kimber to get a 2-year contract with a discount, plus 4 extra months, plus gifts in some markets. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the show notes. Protect your computer like a blocker protects the stumps with NordVPN today. Gujarat Titans. Well, ever since we made our video on Sai Sudarshan, he decided to break through his glass ceiling and his glass floor to make us look a little bit silly. He went from scoring between 10 and 45 in the first 8 innings of the season to scoring 100, 250s and a single-digit score in his last 4 innings. He might as well have been 2 different batters. And quite frankly, I might need to disown him. He finished the season with more than 500 runs at a strike rate of over 140. Shubman Gill had a decent season as well, scoring 426 runs at a strike rate of 147. And while these aren't really terrible numbers, Gill needed a 600-run season for Gujarat to have a chance. And in a year when so many players scored at more than 1.5 runs a ball, Gujarat had 2 really solid anchors. Their death overs batting was still above par, thanks to Rahul Tewatia, David Miller, and the odd Rashid Khan cameo. They weren't quite as good as their last 2 seasons, but they weren't bad. However, they were slightly below par with the bat for the first 16 overs of the innings, which is bad. Gujarat had a very old-school batting approach. It was timid and at times exhausting to watch. Also, let's not forget that they, for some inexplicable reason, felt that a top order of Saha, Gill, Williamson, and Sudarshan and Shankar was a good idea for this season of the IPL. This season? Saha was out of form, Sudarshan was not a quick starter, and even Gill finished with a strike rate of only 131 in the first 6 overs. Gill and Sudarshan actually did quite well in the middle overs, and Miller batted a little bit higher than he probably should have, but the rest of the batters barely stayed in at all. Despite losing Mohammad Shami, Gujarat were a plus team in the power play, which is pretty handy. Sandeep Warrior and Umesh Yadav took a lot of wickets, but they did also go for a lot of runs. The real problem is that they were supposed to be a great bowling team from the power play until the end. Mohit, Rashid and Noor were going to combine for like a lock or a pincer-like movement. They did not. Mohit had a great start to the season and then it went completely and utterly terrible. Rashid was far from his best all the way through, picking up only 10 wickets at an economy of 8.4, and Noor was fine, but certainly not a massive plus. In fact, only 2 bowlers, Mohit and Rashid, took 10 wickets, and you wouldn't actually say that either of them had plus seasons. Mohammad Shami and Hardik Pandya's absence certainly hurt them. They do have a good core that they can build around in Indian players, Shubman Gill, Mohammad Shami, Sai Sudarshan, and they have obviously Rashid Khan and David Miller if they still want him. But it would be hard to look at what I just said and think that they have a rosy future. They really need to think about what side they want to be next year. Lucknow Super Giants. Well, LSG were only a plus team in 1 out of the 6 phases, which is middle overs batting. And honestly, I would suggest that a big part of that was Nicholas Puran, who had to bat within himself to right the ship, so I'm not sure that is actually a plus. Puran had a good season. He averaged 62 with a strike rate of 178, but you do wonder whether he could have been 230 season in the form he was in, considering the kind of high-scoring season this was. It felt like LSG had him bat with the handbrake on almost all the way through. Marcus Stoinis was also important between overs 7 and 16, and KL Rahul's strike rate was much better in the middle than it was in the power play. They had 4 bowlers who took 10 or more wickets: Navin Al-Haq, Yash Thakur, Ravi Bishnoi and Mohsin Khan. But except Bishnoi, they all conceded more than 10 runs per over. And the most exciting thing about their bowling, or even their entire team, was Mayank Yadav's express pace. Unfortunately, he disappeared as quickly as he bowled. And it's worth pointing out that Bishnoi did not have a great year either. Mayank only played 4 games, but had a big impact on 2 wins. Take him out, and Lucknow were pretty poor in the middle overs. Bishnoi took 8 wickets at an average of 39. Krunal bowled 25 overs at an economy of under 7, and Navin had figures of 6 for 92 in the 11 overs in this phase. As a whole, they just couldn't take enough wickets or stop the flow of runs. Their power play batting was the biggest problem. They kept losing wickets and did not score quickly either. Rahul actually had a good power play strike rate in the first half of the season, but that dropped from 154 in the first 7 matches to 121 in the last 7. Quinton de Kock averaged slightly more than 17 in this phase, and he just never got going. They have had a decent record in the league since their inception, qualifying for the playoffs twice and winning 50% of their games this season. But they do feel really mid, and it'll be interesting to see who they look to retain in this next mega auction. I mean, I think it's quite clear there's going to be a lot of conversations between KL Rahul and the owner. Maybe behind closed doors this time? The Delhi Capitals, well, they had Jake Fraser-McGurk, and his inclusion was a big part of them going from 1-5 to 7-14, which, let's be honest, was a stroke of blind luck, and not something that was pre-planned. But we also have to remember that they did not have a Harry Brook for the entire season. Mitch Marsh left quite early on after not making any runs, and even Kuldeep missed a few games due to injury. The 2 phases where Delhi have been above par are death overs batting and middle overs bowling. Tristan Stubbs has scored almost 3 runs a ball and been dismissed just once in the final 4 overs. And the skipper Rishabh Pant also hit a boundary every 2.5 balls at the death. With the ball, the spin duo of Kuldeep Yadav and Akshar Patel have done a brilliant job in the middle overs. And Rafiq Salam, who I really like, Mukesh Kumar have also been really good strike bowling options. They are exactly at par with the bat in the power play on our metrics, which is about the funniest thing I've ever heard, because Fraser-McGurk scored at almost 2.5 runs a ball in that period. The opening partnership for Delhi has been a revolving door. Even seemingly in the same game, they would have like 3 or 4 different guys go through that position. Abhishek Porel certainly showed some promise, but Prithvi Shaw and David Warner just did not have good seasons, right? Rishabh Pant has been their most important batter in the middle overs, although he was a slow starter. To be fair to him, no one else from Delhi actually made that many runs in the middle overs, plus he was coming back and getting used to being out in the middle again. When it comes to the power play bowling, Khalil Ahmed took a wicket once every 23 balls, and Ishant Sharma struck every 16 balls in the first 6 overs. They're the only 2 Delhi bowlers that have bowled at least 3 overs and had an economy rate of under 10 when the field restrictions were on. And if you think that was bad, Delhi were really bad at the death. Not a single bowler delivered 2 overs to Delhi and conceded below 10 runs an over in the final 4. Even if we take the high-scoring nature of this league into account, I mean, it was bad. Norkia was going for, I don't know, like 100 runs in every over he bowled at one stage. Those numbers may not be correct, but you're talking about someone who at his absolute best is maybe not quite at the Bumrah or Patharana level, but is much better than he was here, and he was not good. Delhi were unable to make the top 4 in each of the 3 seasons since the last mega auction. But you could argue that they weren't that far off, winning 7 games in 2022 and 2024. A good thing for them is to actually have a strong Indian and overseas core of young players that they can build around for the future. Pant, Kuldeep, Akshar, Fraser-McGurk, and Stubbs. Perel and Rafiq are also good fringe players, depending on how many players you can actually keep into the next season. But there are also 2 ways of looking at this season. Either they got freak seasons out of Fraser-McGurk and Stubbs that they will never ever get again, or they might have the most destructive top and tail overseas duo we have ever seen. If you believe the second, their future could be incredibly fun. If you believe the first, they might have just wasted an incredible opportunity. And then lastly, we have the Chennai Super Kings. They are quite clearly the best team to have not made the playoffs, and that should really annoy them. Yes, they played last year's IPL style, and they also lost a few games that they probably should have won. But they are a plus batting team in all phases, and also in the middle and death overs with the ball. In fact, they were 2 hits in 5 balls away from making it again after MS Dhoni hit the ball out of Chinnaswamy. Of course, that shot is probably the reason that they actually didn't make the playoffs, because the wet ball was replaced with a dry one. But that's not Dhoni's fault. Although they were a plus team on our metrics, watching Chennai bat was frustrating. You constantly felt like they were holding themselves back and playing a brand of cricket that just didn't belong in this season. And they kept holding wickets back when they didn't actually seem like they needed to. A lot of their 190 to 210 scores could have been 220, 30, 40 if they'd just shown 2024 intent. The skipper Ruturaj Gaikwad scored 583 runs at a strike rate of 141. He was CSK's best batter this season by a considerable distance. 63% of his runs came in wins. So when he did well, CSK won, and when he didn't, they lost. In the power play, he gave good starts for an anchor-type batter. Racha Ravindra gave a couple of quick starts, then got a few low scores, and they lost faith in him. Then eventually they brought him back for the last couple of games anyway. Ajinkya pace hitter Rahane scored at over 2 runs a ball in the power play in 2023, but he regressed to previous Rahane years, sadly. CSK clearly felt a Conway-sized void and desperately needed another solid batter to support Ruturaj, or at least let him score quicker. Shivam Dubé had a huge impact in the middle overs. In fact, he was probably one of the best batters in the season before he completely and utterly lost form in his last 5 innings. Tushar Deshpande was brilliant, and whispered he may be a nomination for the most improved player of the season. He was just way better than we could have ever imagined he would be. Also, Patharana and Mustafiza not playing the full season really derailed their campaign. Patharana was so good that a full year of him could have given them a chance at the title, not just the playoffs. However, there are a lot of other teams who missed good players as well. It is weird to think that this team, usually known for depth and versatility, basically had Gaikwad and Patharana as the sole reasons for their success. And there are things that Chennai can look at, like the Rajasthan game last week, and wonder whether they should have gone for a net run rate push. But them not going for net run rate sums up the way that they were batting all season. And again, they won 5 out of 7 matches at Chiphook, and only 2 on the road. They built a very decent side for their home conditions, but the rest of the IPL was quite different. Since the mega auction, CSK have finished 9th, won the title, and now finished 5th. It's not exactly been on brand with the consistency we know them for, and there are still a lot of questions to be answered. We don't know if that was Dhoni's last season. They also have a strong Indian contingent in Gaikwad, Jadeja, Dubé and Deshpande, and Simranjeet Singh, I thought, bowled really well. And when it comes to overseas options, obviously Patharana is a no-brainer, and Mustafiza bowled quite well for them also. But is it time for a rebuild? We know that they like to keep a consistent team setup, but could they blow it up? Because Dubé, Deshpande and Patharana are obvious choices for how the IPL is now played. Jadeja and Gaikwad, maybe not. So where do they go from here? Well, not to the playoffs. And that is it. We have eliminated all the IPL teams. Please like, subscribe, pledge your allegiance to us at the crossroads around midnight, and we will see you again for more IPL content, probably tomorrow and the next. There's a lot to come. There's a lot of stuff. If you make any content, Minvo Pro is the tool for you. Take your long format content and cut it and slice it for social media. This AI-inspired weapon will turn your one piece of work into so many clips. Try Minvo.pro now.